The documentary opens with slow-motion shots of our cul-de-sac at golden hour, drone gliding over identical roofs like it's scouting for truth in a zip code that pretends not to know the word. The soundtrack is a church bell recorded on a Tuesday, because betrayal never checks the calendar. The title card reads, Operation Crib Justice, in blocky white letters. I cut on my neighbor's cricket while the baby slept on my chest and drooled policy-grade resolve down my T-shirt. Critics, by which I mean the HOA, call it compelling, tasteful, almost patriotic, which is what Americans say when they mean you handled your revenge with proper paperwork instead of fire. I tell the camera I am the father of a newborn and the ex-husband of a cheating wife who abandoned our son overnight to spend it at a hotel with her married boss. And I say it plainly because euphemism is a kind of conspiracy, and we already have enough conspiracies swirling around here. The camera lingers on the baby monitor's green glow like a lighthouse for the landlocked. And then we smash cut, because spectacle, into the night that wrote itself like a parody of responsibility. And you're already judging me for airing family business on a screen, but understand, in America, privacy is a luxury good, and I spent my last luxury on diapers. Besides, if the neighborhood gets to hold a bake sale for a golden retriever's ACL, I get to hold a premiere for my life. Now reverse the tape and I'm back to the moment I became suspicious, not because she changed her perfume, not because her phone lived face down like it had sworn an oath of secrecy, not because her laugh developed a second accent reserved for leadership meetings, but because she started referencing off-site strategy nights at a mid-range hotel chain whose carpeting pattern is designed by cartographers of boredom. Every American knows that leadership retreat is sometimes French, for you'll need a credit card statement to learn the truth. I tried to believe in our family the way you try to believe your car's rattle is a playlist issue, not a mechanical one. And then the baby arrived and cried with that ancient confidence that rearranges your molecules. Everything sharpened into duty, except her, who blurred at the edges like a witness refusing to focus. I told myself this was postpartum fog, the way suburban men tell themselves they can fix a marriage with a weekend project and a smoker. And then the night came when fog hardened into coordinates. It was 2:07 a.m. because betrayal respects neither REM cycles nor mercy. The baby monitor crackled like a pre-war radio, the crib rustled, and my hand slid to the other side of the bed the way it had 1,000 desperate times in the last 6 weeks. But the side was a note taped to silence. Work crisis, back by morning. Written in an executive cursive that looked like alibi calligraphy. I did the bottle and the burp and the sway. I recited the Bill of Rights because the pediatrician says, talk to the baby, and I want him to inherit due process. And then the notification hit my phone like a polite little bomb. Thanks for your stay. Earned 2x points at Sun Valley Suites, room 428. Now people say infidelity leaves lipstick on collars. In 2025, it leaves loyalty points and a smiley tone push notification. I sat in the dark like a defendant waiting for the jury to come back in, humming You Are My Sunshine with the cadence of a closing argument. At 2:55 a.m., my friend Greg texted, Bro, I just postmated fries to Sun Valley. Saw your wife in the lobby with the regional Napoleon from her office, the married dude with the MBA beard. Because, of course, Greg drives late and maps the city's moral economy one zucchini fry at a time. I want you to know I didn't drive there with a camera or a bat. This isn't a movie where revenge arrives in a leather jacket and exits to guitar. This is America, where revenge wears readers and highlights clauses. But since you asked for conspiracy and a little fantasy, I will tell you the rumor that circulates among mid-level managers. There is a secret fraternity called the National Association of Middle Management, NAMM, that meets inside chain hotels to initiate promising souls into the church of not getting caught. NAM's crest is 2 conference lanyards crossed over a minibar key. Their oath is a PowerPoint titled Optics. They think loyalty programs are absolution. They do not plan for babies. And perhaps that's the problem with conspiracy.
when you were to an about tadi say, away sin or serene or down day.
Convinced a shadow council controls the world, you never see that the person in front of you is simply choosing badly in plain light. So no, there was no cabal, only a married boss and my cheating wife making an ordinary ruin with corporate carpeting underfoot. I held the baby and thought about our family like a legal entity, assets and liabilities columned out. Assets included chirping laughter and a tiny sock that clung to the dryer door like an oath. Liabilities included a hotel receipt that spelled out betrayal in 12-point sans serif. I filmed the crib's sleepy rise and fall because later a judge might need to see the rhythm of innocence to understand the gravity of abandonment. Because in this country, we prove love with exhibits. I opened a blank note titled Custody Roadmap and wrote the first sentence. He deserves a parent whose first loyalty isn't to a minibar. Then I wrote the second. I am done auditioning for someone who likes their drama catered. The baby fell asleep. The house grew quiet, except for the clinically upbeat monologue of the smart fridge telling me we're low on spinach. And though you asked for parody, I can only tell you this part straight. I cried like a man with salt for blood, because betrayal does not shatter you in one blow. It dissolves you slow until you recognize yourself only in duty. At 6:58 a.m. I brewed coffee as if the correct ratio of grounds to water could restore the Constitution. At 7:21 the door opened with the soft authority of a key that believes in itself. She said, "Don't start," and I said, "I already did," motioning at the bottle on the drying rack like it had testified. When you live inside toxic love long enough, simple sentences acquire the density of legal codes. She showered the way people erase evidence in movies, and I wiped the counter the way people prepare a courtroom. We will get to the confrontation later. Today we are telling this like a prestige miniseries, out of order for maximum dread. But before we cut, I want to tell you about the neighborhood garage, where justice is shaped like folding chairs and Costco brownies. 2 days after the night, before the courthouse, before HR, Linda, the HOA president, assembled what we call the Cul-de-sac Council, an impromptu tribunal that has previously judged fence heights, drone etiquette, and the matter of whose teenager keeps parking crooked. This time, Linda wrote, "Agenda Family Crisis" with family underlined twice because she is old school and thinks underlines can hold broken beams. I brought the hotel receipt and the baby monitor footage and the note she left. The room went quiet with that particular American silence that happens when people realize a culture war slogan has just walked into their neighbor's kitchen and turned into a crying child. I screened the opening sequence of my documentary on Linda's garage wall. The baby gurgled like a tiny film critic, and the dads who grill on weekends and fix stuff on Mondays muttered the universal oath of fathers. I'd take the night shift for this kid until the sun explodes. The moms shook their heads the way people do when they've seen this pattern in different shoes. Someone asked whether infidelity always looks like a hotel. And someone else said sometimes it looks like a secret bank account of attention, and for a second, America felt like a 12-person jury that might acquit us all if we stop pretending we don't understand how people get lost. Then Linda tapped her clipboard and said, "You know what you have to do." And I said, "Yes," because revenge had already taken off its cape and put on a tie. The father's cut goes like this. After the app chirped its obscene congratulations on my doubled loyalty points for a room I did not occupy, I called my brother, a high school civics teacher who treats facts like sacred bread. He told me to screenshot everything, to email the screenshots to myself and to him because cloud redundancy is the modern rosary. I fed the baby a bottle and whispered a lullaby that was actually a list of next steps. Then I drove, not to the hotel, not yet, but around the block twice, like the cul-de-sac has its own orbit, because sometimes gravity is the only thing that helps you not fly into something stupid. I parked, breathed, and put the car in reverse because the dashboard clock looked like a witness I wasn't ready to cross-examine. When dawn glued the world back together, I did what American men do when we need to feel useful. I made a list. At the top were 3 authorities that govern our lives more than the Constitution ever dreamed: HR, family court, and the calendar. It is not romantic, but justice rarely is. The device's cut is colder and therefore truer. The baby monitor logs heart rate spikes at 209, 341, and 427. The house camera catalogs empty hallway footage like a museum of absence. The smart lock records a 721 unlock by someone whose phone ends in 14 because even betrayal needs Bluetooth. The fridge announces "door open too long" twice as if filing incident reports. Alexa pretends not to hear questions about Sun Valley Suites because even spies need plausible deniability. My email timestamps the screenshots like notarized breaths. The credit card portal, cheerful as a children's show, displays a "How was your stay?" survey with 5 smiley faces, each an insult. You ask for parody, and I'm telling you, the joke lands itself. The network of conveniences meant to make our lives smooth also makes timelines you can print for a judge, and the paper trail is longer than any bouquet he ever sent. I don't have to embellish because the data is already theatrical. Now the conspiracy cut, which I only present because you said you wanted a touch of wild and because satire sometimes saves people who would rather laugh than cry. There exists, in certain corporate circles, a whispered doctrine called the After-Hours Optimization Protocol. Its apostles claim that high performers bond better when they violate low-stakes commandments. Discretion breeds cohesion, says the fake white paper, which is code for cheating without consequences. The hotels are chosen for their elevator's indifference, the bartenders for their hearing loss, the managers for their appetite for risk packaged in a tailored jacket. The spouses are written off as non-stakeholders. The newborns are assigned to the care column, which is a euphemism for whoever didn't book a room. Do I believe this is real? I believe a more boring version is. I believe people in power dress their impulses in jargon until the mirror nods back. I believe the married boss subscribes to a magazine called Winning that smells like cologne and silence. I believe my cheating wife read the magazine over his shoulder and mistook it for a map. At 5:50 a.m., because I am not a saint and I'm a man in America raised on recon montages, I drove to Sun Valley Suites to confirm what I already knew. The lobby was lemon-scented and ashamed. The night auditor pretended to straighten brochures while performing his own little revenge against the company by leaking the kind of general information that isn't confidential but changes everything. We've had 3 complaints this month about noise on the 4th floor, he said to the air, always around the same room. Guests say it sounds like bad karaoke and worse decisions. And I thanked him with a tip that made the tip jar look brave. A bell cart squeaked a confession. A businessman in running shoes jogged nowhere on a treadmill and stared at the news like he was waiting for it to teach him morals. I did not go upstairs. There are rooms I will not enter again, and some of them have carpeting. I bought a coffee that tasted like alimony and drove home to do the only heroic act a father can perform on demand: show up. I want to tell you everything about the confrontation, but our series is committed to suspense and also reality, the slow kind, not the TV kind. So let me place you in the kitchen where the scene will unfold without yet releasing it. The cutting board is a bench. The dishwasher hums as a court reporter. The baby, small and certain, is the judge. She will enter wearing exhaustion and perfume, and I will ask questions with the gentleness of a man who still believes people can be better than the choices they make. Before that, before the clash, I did a different kind of preparation that may not be cinematic, but is shockingly effective. I called HR. If you have never weaponized a policy manual against a leadership romance, you have not seen revenge redesigned for a lawful society. The investigator answered with a voice that has heard everything. I gave dates, times, screenshots, the outline of a married boss's extracurricular mentorship. She did not gasp. She said, "Mm-hmm." The way a professional "mm-hmm" can be both a salve and a sword. She told me about the company's anti-fraternization rule, a piece of legal poetry that protects organizations from the entropy of secret liaisons. She asked if the cheating wife's abandonment of a newborn factored into work performance. I said the numbers were between the two of them, but the facts were between all of us now. She said thank you, and what she meant was, we will move the boulder an inch. People like to say, don't air dirty laundry, but in 2025, the machine is already running, and it prints timestamps. The neighbors will whisper anyway. The church ladies will cook casseroles of comfort and commentary. The dads will offer to install a security light and then just stand there holding a drill like solidarity. I took my documentary rough cut to Linda's garage for a test screening, not because I needed applause, but because I needed witnesses. When people see a timeline, they know where to stand. We argued about whether cheating equals abuse or neglect or just bad behavior, and the debate lasted exactly one scone. By the second scone, the room agreed that abandonment of a newborn is an emergency with a dress code, and the dress code is called accountability. Linda handed me a list of family lawyers with stars next to the ones who fight like choir directors. Fierce, precise, convinced that harmony is a discipline. By the time the cheating wife walked in the front door with hotel soap lingering like a cheap punchline, I had returned to the kitchen to arrange the scene like a minimal set. 3 objects on the countertop: the bottle, the monitor, the printed receipt, each an instrument. You wanted parody. So imagine me as a B-movie prosecutor in sweatpants and a hoodie with a coffee stain that looks like the state of Tennessee. Imagine the baby banging a plastic giraffe in 4/4 time like a bailiff who moonlights as a percussionist. Imagine the fridge display showing "replace water filter," as if calling us both to repentance. She says, "Can we not do this right now?" And I say, "We already did." And the music drops, and everything you'd expect a man to shout is replaced by what I actually say. The most uncinematic line in the history of revenge. "Who's your lawyer?" Because I finally understood that love had left the building and law had just walked in, briefcase in hand, ready to build a future that is not pretty but is solid. If you want explosions, go to the movies. If you want survival, come back for the next reel. I promise a confrontation without spectacle, a custody plan without gloating, a reconciliation with the person I still have to become. The baby wakes, yawns, and blinks a verdict into the morning. That is the only rating that matters. That is the only audience that changes how the show ends. The third act begins not with shouting, but with the sound of a coffee maker wheezing like an overworked stenographer. You think the climax of betrayal should be a dramatic slap or a shattered wine glass, but in America the true battles happen in kitchens under fluorescent lights, while the dishwasher hums like a court reporter. She came home at 7:21 a.m., smelling like hotel soap in someone else's timeline, and I had already staged the scene like a low-budget legal drama. On the counter, 3 exhibits. Exhibit A, the credit card statement with Sun Valley Suites, bolded like a punchline. Exhibit B, the loyalty app notification, printed in color because judges like tabs and color prints. Exhibit C, the baby monitor log, time-stamped wake-ups that screamed louder than any witness. The baby himself sat in his high chair, sucking on a giraffe, gaveling innocence onto the record. She tried the laugh first, the one you practice in mirrors that charge by the minute. "Client dinner," she said, sliding into a stool like she was testifying in front of Congress. I slid the receipt. "Client breakfast too?" I asked. The silence thickened into concrete. She reached for the oldest American alibi. I felt trapped. I needed to feel alive. The jury, represented by one cranky infant and a father with 5 hours of sleep across 3 nights, did not buy it. She pivoted to tears, the weaponized kind that arrives when logic packs its bags. I didn't hand her a tissue. The baby had dibs on them for spit-ups. Here's the thing about toxic love. It's not just the cheating wife at a hotel, it's also the 1,000 micro-betrayals before it. The hidden phone, the late meetings, the way she dismissed my exhaustion as drama. Americans love revenge served hot, but in reality, revenge is just the filing of the correct paperwork. My lawyer, recommended by Linda from the HOA, who treats statutes like gardening tips, told me to document everything. So I did. I built a binder with tabs: infidelity, abandonment, timeline, witnesses. Witnesses included Greg the Postmate driver, Diego the bellhop, and even the raccoon by the dumpster who ate a croissant like it was evidence. Satire aside, the binder was the real sword. Neighbors weighed in like sports commentators. "Classic case of betrayal," one dad muttered over his grill. "Saw it coming after she switched to oat milk," another mom whispered at Target. Suburban America processes infidelity the way it processes football injuries, with speculation, highlight reels, and casseroles. The boss's wife called me, voice sharp as a gavel, to compare notes. "He booked the same chain for our anniversary once," she said. "I should have known loyalty points were his real mistress." We laughed, bitter and bipartisan. Her revenge plan was to torch his reputation at the office. Mine was to build a custody case with the sturdiness of a Home Depot shelf. The confrontation ended without fireworks. She admitted enough to confirm betrayal, but not enough to grant me the dignity of full truth. That's the nature of cheating. It leaves you with fragments, never wholes. She said she wanted space. I said, "Great. Here's a calendar invite with a mediator present." She said I was being cold. I said cold is better than absent. The baby burped like a witness swearing in. Scene over. Fade to the sound of a printer churning out affidavits. At work, the fallout spread faster than TikTok gossip. HR opened an investigation, and in corporate America that's equivalent to Judgment Day. The married boss tried the mutual mistake line until the company realized clients don't like their contracts signed in hotel rooms. He was reassigned, which in HR dialect means exiled to a cubicle next to the vending machine. She took unpaid leave to reflect, which is a euphemism for waiting until people forget. But Americans don't forget. We binge stories of infidelity like they're true crime podcasts. The neighborhood had already labeled her the cheating wife, and nicknames in suburbia are harder to shake than lawsuits. I didn't play the Avenger with torches, I played the dad with receipts. Revenge wasn't about screaming, "I told you so," in the cul-de-sac. It was about walking into family court with documentation so precise it could double as a syllabus. The lawyer rehearsed with me like I was auditioning for the role of responsible parent. "Don't editorialize," she said. "Stick to facts." But facts were the sharpest editorial anyway. A newborn left overnight. A hotel bill. A marriage boss already married. That's not narrative. That's arithmetic. Betrayal plus infidelity equals custody in the father's column. I should mention the conspiracies swirling at this stage because satire requires a subplot. On Reddit, strangers speculated she was part of a larger syndicate. Midwestern Wives for Marriott Rewards. Others claimed the boss was actually a lizard in khakis testing human loyalty. One TikTok theorist said the baby wasn't even mine, but a government plant to test resilience in broken families. Americans can't resist turning pain into entertainment, and for once, I didn't mind. The parody gave me distance. If my life was a soap opera, at least I wasn't the villain. Still, nights were brutal. Rocking a baby at 3 a.m., a scrolling through texts you can't unread, planning legal revenge by lamplight. It wears you down. But somewhere between the burps and the printouts, I understood that survival is its own revenge. She traded a family for a minibar. I chose to build something permanent. Custody, stability, a story where betrayal is just the first act, not the finale. By the time we reached mediation, I was ready. She arrived in a blouse that looked borrowed from contrition, hair tied like she wanted to appear responsible. I arrived with tabs, charts, timestamps, and a baby strapped to my chest like Exhibit D. The mediator asked us to speak from the heart. She said, "I made a mistake." I said, "Mistakes are forgetting anniversaries." This was infidelity, abandonment, betrayal. This was leaving a newborn for a married boss. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. The mediator nodded. The baby cooed. The record stood. Courtrooms in our county smell like air conditioning and fluorescent patience. The flag hangs with a tired dignity. The state seal looks like it's been through 3 divorces, and the benches creak in a chorus that says, "None of this is new." My lawyer stacks the binder on counsel table like a brick of logic, tabs glinting in the institutional light, while I bounce the baby on my knee and recite the day's schedule as if routine itself were a legal defense. Across the aisle sits the cheating wife, hair tied into a knot labeled remorse, blouse the color of "I've thought about things." This way, and somewhere in the building, the married boss is on a conference call about quarterly optics because HR has him in a holding pattern over the vending machines. The judge enters with the weary grace of a little league umpire who has seen too many close calls at home plate and says good morning in a voice that files everything it touches, and then the case begins, not with fireworks, but with exhibits and timestamps and the math of absence. Our family becomes a diagram. Betrayal becomes a printout. Infidelity becomes a credit card record with loyalty points that now look like tiny receipts for emotional debt. My lawyer asks me to testify, and I do, steady and uncinematic, because revenge here wears a tie and believes in paragraphs. I tell the judge about the night, the 2:07 a.m. bottle, the push notification congratulating me for a stay I did not enjoy, the 7:21 a.m. Baitasua unlock from a phone that is now an exhibit. I do not perform rage. I perform clarity. The baby gurgles like a teletype machine, and the court reporter smiles like humanity got a recess. Her lawyer says words like context and postpartum fog, and we all nod because compassion belongs in the room even when judgment does too. But then the judge asks the only question that matters: did you leave a newborn overnight for a hotel with a married boss? And silence does the work of 1,000 speeches. In the gallery, the boss's wife sits with a notebook full of dates and a face full of resolve. And I remember the garage tribunal where neighbors rehearsed this very moment with Costco brownies and moral math. And somehow the entire suburban nation seems present here. From the church choir that hums casseroles into broken kitchens to the Target aisle where 2 neighbors will later pretend not to see each other because scandal is buy one get one awkward. The ruling arrives with the authority of school bells, not drums. Temporary primary physical custody to me. A parenting plan with pickups that click like train timetables. Her visitation starting supervised and expanding with compliance, mandatory parenting class because even adults need syllabus and lab. An admonition written across the docket in invisible letters that read, "Children are not collateral. I do not cheer. I breathe." The cheating wife squeezes a tissue into a confession of fibers, and I experience the strangest American emotion, which is pity braided to accountability. Because toxic love makes you want flames, but a child needs furniture that does not wobble. Outside, under a sky that looks newly notarized, the married boss's wife and I exchange a nod that is not alliance so much as parallel survival. She tells me HR issued a final warning and reassigned him to the satellite office by the airport where fluorescent dreams go to nap. The after-hours optimization protocol, that little conspiracy I mocked, dies an unceremonious death in a paragraph of corporate policy that reads, "No fraternization with subordinates, and also no using hotel points to launder bad judgment." My lawyer shakes my hand like we just hung drywall together and says the next 6 months matter more than today. Because the court loves documentation the way a gardener loves rainfall. The baby falls asleep in the car seat like a judge who has rendered a verdict and will now take his pretzel break. We drive home through a city that suddenly looks readable again, like the street signs remembered their job. At the house, I file the order in a folder named Life 2.0 and hang the parenting plan on the fridge between a pediatrician magnet and a coupon for rotisserie chicken, because in America, the sacred lives right next to the practical. The routine builds itself, brick by brick, in a language children understand. Wake, bottle, burp, nap, walk, laugh, repeat. I learn the stealth art of packing a diaper bag like a Navy operation. I perfect a bottle temperature test that doubles as a magic trick. I discover that Trader Joe's cashiers are clergy for single parents. The neighborhood adapts like a marching band that just lost its drummer but keeps time anyway. Friends drop off crock pots. Greg from Postmates becomes Uncle Fry, who reads board books in a voice that turns vowels into trampoline. The dads stand in my driveway holding tools they may or may not know how to use, and say we got you. And the moms teach me the cult secrets of stain removal as if they were wartime codes. Once a week, I open the binder and add a page labeled Ordinary Goodness. Baby slept 6 hours. Baby laughed at a raccoon on trash night. Baby held my finger like it was Article 1 of the Constitution. Satire requires a subplot. So here's the one where a glossy envelope arrives addressed to household decision maker offering triple points at Sun Valley Suites and a free cheese board for booking 2 nights. As if the loyalty program were a dragon that believes I still live in its cave. I feed the offer to the shredder and imagine the raccoon in a tiny judge wig banging a gavel made of stale croissant. The cheating wife begins her class and her visits, and I watch carefully without vengeance leaking into my face. She brings board books and a new tone I do not recognize, a voice that seems to have read the parent manual we all wish existed. Our exchanges become precise like baton passes in track. Hello, report, schedule, thank you. Sometimes grief sneaks between us and we both see the family we didn't build. Not the headline about cheating, but the Tuesday night where dishes dried themselves because laughter warmed the room. I do not weaponize these moments. I let them pass, and I write down the times she shows, the diapers she changes, the apologies she attempts. This is not leniency. This is record-keeping in a nation where the future is a file. HR completes its arc by sending me a letter confirming that the married boss is no longer her direct supervisor and that the company's policy is not a suggestion. And I add it to the binder not because the judge asked, but because order is my therapy. People keep asking if revenge feels good, like it's a ribeye you slice at the table. And I say revenge feels like a bedtime that arrives on time, like a bottle that's the right temperature, like a court order that keeps its promises. You want a spectacle where I rent a billboard that says, "Don't be a cheating wife," and place it above the hotel exit ramp. But the truth is monotone and noble. I won custody not with fire, but with facts. I built a life not with one triumphant gesture, but with 10,000 small faithful ones. And in a culture addicted to finales, I choose a series with no last episode. On a Sunday, when the light is polite and the baby's hair stands up like static, the neighborhood hosts a potluck rebrand called Welcome to the New Normal. The grill smokes its democracy, the kids run their feral senate on scooters, and a neighbor presents me with a certificate that says Community Commendation for Evidence-Based Parenting, which sounds like a joke until you consider that villages are real even in suburbs. Later that night, I sit on the floor beside the crib and tell a fairy tale that translates our mess into a story a child can hold. Once upon a time, there was a ship called Family that sailed into a storm, and the captain left to chase fireworks in a hotel shaped like a lighthouse, and the first mate held the wheel, and a raccoon navigator showed the way to calmer waters. And a council of friends patched the sails, and the ship learned that revenge isn't sinking another boat. It's teaching your own to keep the horizon. The baby sighs the sound of forgiven weather and sleeps. Years from now, the record will show that a certain week contained betrayal, infidelity, cheating, and the end of toxic love. But the daily minutes will show that a father made breakfast, packed lunches, showed up to pediatric visits, learned the choreography of tiny pajamas, and kept a promise he never said out loud. If there is a conspiracy guiding this world, it is the quiet one where showing up every day rearranges fate's paperwork. In the morning, I will open the binder and add a final tab called Ongoing, because this story does not end with a gavel, and my last line is not a threat or an anthem. It is a commitment disguised as a punchline. The grand finale of revenge is not a shout, it's a routine. And the greatest headline my son will ever read is simple: "My family did not disappear, it changed shape, and his father never left."